G'day and welcome to the Infronters. I'm Execute and today I'm joined by Algared and Dyson. How you guys doing?
Doing
Good,
good.
thanks. Good.
Good, yeah. So we've been rather busy coming up to CitizenCon. We've all got our personal lives on at the moment, so we haven't done an episode for a couple of weeks. So we thought better stop in and spend some time with you guys before you miss us too much. Yeah, Algared's been a bit busy with schoolwork. Dyson's been the same. He's off different sides of the study coin there. One's a teacher, one's a studier. But student, I
I
should
don't know
say.
who I envy more.
Yeah. Life is hell in the education system.
Depends on which time of the assignment it is.
Yeah. Which end of the stick. Alright, so today's episode, we're going to talk about the Constellation and what we think, or can we actually fix this ship, because it's in a really bad place. I think I'll start out by saying it's one of the older ships in the game, one of the original 5 from the Kickstarter, and I think, for me, it all kind of starts there, where it was all before everything was put in place, and it's this iconic ship that Chris Roberts says it's his favourite ship. It is it is the ship. This and the Super Hornet, I would say, are the two most iconic.
It and the Super Hornet were the two ships that kind of epitomised Star Citizen, what Star Citizen was. The Hornet for the fighter and the Constellation for that group task, and they're both iconic, and you want to keep that look. And yeah,
I was gonna say, I think it sold a lot of people on this game. Like I don't know about you boys, but that Merlin concept, the docking thing, and the 4 players and a friend going around the verse, this is the ship that I brought in on, basically.
It was the first large-ish ship that I ever participated in any sort of multiplayer activity with. So it's iconic, but that's its issue too, is it's iconic, and being as it's iconic, people don't want to change it because of either offending people or they're stuck in the way because it's the Connie. How dare you touch the Connie?
I know. Same as you guys. This was the first ship I bought.
Yeah.
So this started the rabbit hole. Beware the rabbit hole.
Yeah. But on the flip side of the coin, how long has it been since you guys have actually been in a Connie? Like how often do you take one out? And I would have to say the use rate for mine has somewhat plummeted. It's like the last thing I take out, and I use it really as an A to B vehicle if I'm trying to get between planets quickly. And that's only if I don't have something else I can't use.
These days, if I'm trying to get some planets quickly, I'll use a cat. If I'm trading, I'll use a cat. If I'm doing most things, I'll use a cat.
Meow.
And you guys know, I really, really am not a fan of a cat, and yet
I've sold you on it. He's transforming. Yes, that's fine.
One of us. Right.
Sad thing is, what are you going to do when the Cutlass comes out, or not the Cutlass, the Corsair comes out?
Yeah, I think the cat's in a great spot at the moment, though. I just think, well, in game terms, but those modules is going to take it to another level. So, yeah. But
I think you're right. The cat, in its position, is a really good ship. The only downside with the cat, in my opinion, is its price point.
Yeah.
And given the size and what it can do, not bad.
I want to get back on point to the Constellation, though. So I think there's a few problems with this ship. I think the iconicness of it, and starting at the outside, and then you go inside and the problems continue. But I think the fundamental thing is they can't do a lot with the inside because of how the outside looks. And I think, how do I put this? The Phoenix is a really good example. So tell us about your problems with the Phoenix specifically.
Well, one of the problems I have.
And make it brief. And make it brief.
Many problems. The many problems.
You have 2 minutes. Wait. I never do this, but we're going to do this just for Algared. Hey, Google, set a timer for 2 minutes.
Google ignores
2 minutes.
There you go.
Starting now.
Go.
Okay, so Constellation Phoenix.
Sorry. Keep going.
So, Constellation Phoenix was originally sold as the upgrade version of the Andromeda. It was sold as supposedly having the ability to have a larger power plant. So every other Connie was supposed to be able to take up to a 6. The Phoenix was able to take up to a 7. It was supposed to have advanced enhanced shields. So it'd be like having the size of the shield now, but with, say, high performance ability. It was supposed to have more size to
would you
missiles.
say it's feature creeped, in short? Like, if you were going to say that as quickly as you could, it's feature creep. They just
No,
put too much.
no, it was supposed to be the higher grade quality. That was part of what was given as the reason for its inflated price. It was also supposed to be the luxury type version. As time went on, early on they said, look, the engines, we can't do the size engines, we can't do this. Yep, fine. When they did the rework, they made the cargo bay fatter, and that was so that the rover would fit, and I think that's something that most of the Connies will end up getting, that fatter midsection. And to also, in part of that, when they put the deck floor in, they also made the deck higher, and that has actually stuffed up the firing arc of that top turret as well as the rear turret, the bottom turret. And it is still missing the mythical 3rd point defense turret. So apart from that, that's it. Oh, the feature creep is it became a large ship. So it's the same, flies like a cat, moves like a cat, the caterpillar, not a feline. But it doesn't have the components that the cat has. And so it's sluggish and slow and horrid.
Okay.
There you go.
That's really good timing, because time's up.
There we go.
You didn't think I could do it.
No, I didn't think you could do it. I thought we were here for like half an hour. But yeah, it was really good. But no, everything you said, nice. That really is on point. I think, honestly, with all the things that have been detailed into this ship, it needs to be a large ship. It needs to be cat size, quite frankly. And I don't think that's a bad thing. They've got room there in the RSI lineup for that. Now they've got a couple of more other RSI ships there in the lineup. That medium section's filled out. And I think back in the day, they didn't know what size... like, look, think of all the ships that have blown out of proportion.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
The only one I've seen downsize in recent memory is the Carrack. It's the only one I can think of.
Yep. And that didn't really get downsized. That actually went from its original size, grew, and then they kind of pulled it back a little bit.
Yep.
So that doesn't really count. That's still great.
Yeah.
The thing is here, the Constellation needs to have, in a way, the Phoenix treatment, though.
Yeah.
It needs to get a little bit of love with how they look at the ship as a whole. Like you said, it's probably going to get that extra cargo bay widening just so you can deal with the rover, but the interior needs a dramatic rework because there's so much wasted space in it, and it really doesn't fit the roles that it works in. I see them doing this with the Taurus. This is why the Taurus is taking so long. They're fixing the interior.
I got to interrupt there, sorry. But it's not even on the roadmap anymore. I actually think this even might lead to the fact that they are reworking this, because the Taurus just completely gone from the roadmap, which makes sense. Like, you logically think about it, why would it be completely removed unless the whole thing's getting a rework?
And when they did the Phoenix, the midsection of a Phoenix, they basically they said they're breaking the even when they were doing the initial thing, they said we're breaking it into parts. So we've got the neck, the midsection, and the tail, and so you'll be able to have a different cockpit, a different neck, different midsection, and different tail, and depending on what you go with would be what you'd get. And the Phoenix kind of set that. This is the luxury version of that midsection. So hopefully that bodes well for the Connie. But
yes,
it's in a bad way.
Can I ask you guys a question? In short, if the ship was bigger and there was more space, would that naturally overflow and fix a lot of the issues you guys have with it? Do you think that... No? Okay.
It's not more space. It's more efficient use of said space. Great example of this. Okay. You walk onto the bridge of any of the constellations. There's so much wasted space. You have all the crew all the way up here, and then you have all this stuff in the background that's not really doing anything. And you could have consoles there, chairs there, stuff there. You go into the crew quarters, it's so cramped when all you need to do is take some of that wasted space in the bridge and just move the airlock forward and actually give a little bit more space in the crew area. And when you look at the Constellation Aquila, this is honestly my soapbox. I know Algared's is the Phoenix. The Aquila needs to have that entire back section Phoenix-fied. And by that, I mean...
I've agreed with you 100% when you've said that about the Aquila needing the deck section and labs and other things.
Put like a lab, put a long-term storage for like crew, like actual long-term accommodations, things like that in the back. Like that is wasted space in an Explorer.
And the Aquila needs to have that widened Phoenix Bay anyway, because it needs to have space for the road.
Precisely. And again, regardless on any of the ships, it's the wasted space that irritates me more than the size.
To come back on the wasted space, so when you look at the cockpit section, you've got the crew at the front, the three crew. You've got the turret space, and then those empty spaces. They're actually the places where the optional terminals were to go, so you could actually upgrade and have a targeting sensor or an extra computer. So I think the original idea was that these plug-in consoles would be able to be used, and that was to give the ship part of that variety. But I think that's something that's gone down the path. In terms of your question, Execute, about would size solve the problems, I don't think the ship necessarily needs to be bigger. It's already a large ship. And I think the size-wise is right. The problem that I find with it is that it's still got the medium-sized ship components, and that makes the ship poorer.
Yeah, I think the different I've lost the word. Variations. What do they call that? The different
variants
is what's causing a lot of the issues. And I actually think if they kind of standardized the front and the back and just made it so the middle changed, it would change a lot of stuff. So I'd almost make it so that the Merlin landed on the top at the back, and that there was like a ramp or elevator at the back, and it comes down and the rover drives out the back. And that could also be where the cargo goes. And then that whole middle section can be whatever you need it to be. So it can be luxury, it can be science, it can be extra cargo in the Taurus, it can be, so it has an elevator that comes down for the Taurus. And it's literally kind of what it is now for the Taurus. And then, and the Andromeda, it could be long range, sleeping accommodations like you suggested, so you can change it to fit, and you can also change the length. I meant the Andromeda, but
I understand what you're saying. The only thing I would say with that is I'd think that they need to at least address the Phoenix separately, because the Nick portion in the Phoenix needs to be noticeably different, because you have passengers entering most likely through that elevator where the crew are going.
If you allow me, if you just change that middle section, right? So you have the neck and all that. They have to tidy them up. I'm not disagreeing with that. But what I'm saying is if you made it so that only really the middle section changes, they could put a stair section in there or an elevator in there that is just for those VIPs. Because as soon as you, think about it. If you take the rover out of the middle section, right, and it's put in the back section, look at how much extra space you've got there. Look at, you could literally have that as a double-decker type space with a massive, huge glass canopy type thing, and then all the rooms can, those walls you get in hotels, they're just walls, but you can all see the same roof. You could have the rooms like that, and so it's this huge, massive glass ceiling. You can make it really luxurious. The amount, it just gives them more space to work with in that middle section. But as I said,
the problem, I think, if you do that, is that you change that iconic ship. That's sweeping.
That's
total redesign.
It has to be changed. That's just it in a nutshell. You take it right back to where it is. It just doesn't work. There are so many problems with this ship, like landing on the engines and the engines are blown off and you land on invisible landing gear. Ben and Merchman does that as well, by the way. The fact that it lands on the back and leans so far forward and there's no front landing gear is absurd. No one would design a ship like that. If you come in at any form of speed, it would just nose plant. they, you know, and I've said for ages, why don't they have some kind of landing gear strut and the elevator come down inside it? They can do that as well. They can make it so the engines rotate up around the body and actually have traditional landing gear. There are so many fixes that they could do for this ship. They just are not prepared to change. And I think Dasein kind of hit it on the head before the show. He said, I don't think they'll ever change it because Chris Roberts likes it. And I think that's the problem. He needs to let this ship go. And I think other ships, they say it themselves, like, are subject to change when you buy stuff. And I think everyone knows that this ship is in a bad place. And I'm pretty sure if they put it up for a vote and said, how would you feel about it if we totally redesigned the Constellation from the ground up to fix all the issues we have for it, most people would go, yeah, love the look of the ship, but it's got to be functional. And they'd let it go.
Well, it needs to be Apollo-fied in a way, too, because the Apollo, if you look at it, it looks cleaner.
It's a cut down Connie.
Yeah.
I'll put it to you this way. You know how they brought out that Mantis and it was real Star Trek-ified? Imagine if they did that to this from the ground up.
Oh,
wow.
Yes.
You know, like, wow, okay, I want that ship now. You know, like,
Well,
if this was literally looking anything like the NC-1701, heaps of people would buy it. Like, and I'm not saying it has to look like that, but if they Star Trek-ified this ship, people would buy it. So if you give them a good design,
it was supposed to originally be the Millennium Falcon, and I think the Star Runner's now got that mantle well.
But you could take that back. You could take that back. You could put, you know, RSI is not very Star Warsy though. You know, so I'm just saying
but
if they change the manufacturer, maybe. But I think they can make this go towards Star Trek.
If you look at the Apollo and the Mantis, they're two of the latest ships we've seen from RSI, and the look and style of those ships, what we've seen, is gorgeous. You can still see their RSI, but they're a lot smoother, a lot cleaner. We haven't seen the Apollo in game yet. We only got the original stuff, but even on the pictures and the original drafts, it was a lot cleaner and sharper than the Constellation and the Aurora. And the first ship we've seen from them for a long while is the Mantis, and that looked really clear. You know, the strutless cockpit, the smooth lines, and you can still see, looking at it, it is an RSI ship.
Mm. Yeah, that new concept artist they had on board did a really good job with that one. Look, I'm almost ready to wrap this up if you guys are, but in my personal opinion, it's bite the bullet time. They've tried to patchwork fix this thing for X number of years. It's heavy rework time. And I think the Taurus missing from the roadmap might actually finally be a sign of that. And I hope it is.
But I don't think it's going to be as heavy, though. I think you're going to get some major body changes, but I think you're going to overall still keep the 4 nacelle style the way with the hovering top part. I think that's going to stay.
They can do all that. That's what I'm saying. Like, if they do a full rework from the ground up, they can still keep a lot of the design language. They can still go back to the drawing board and make it look relatively similar. There's no reason they can't do that. But also at the same time they can kind of Star Trekify it if they want to do that. I think my big concern with this ship has always been how it lands and stuff like that. And I've said to you guys several times, if they made the engines rotate, that gives more clearance. You could have proper landing gear, etc., etc., and the stuff I mentioned before. Other than that, I think it all starts on the outside from the look, and it's just one of those problems that they've mentioned with ships before, where they used to make them look, and then they used to worry about the insides. And I think this has just flowed right through, and this is the biggest example of a ship I can see. But I can think of several ships where they've had to go back and do Algared. I'm trying to think of the one. What's the one? We talked about it recently, but it doesn't matter. What closing thoughts from you guys then, I guess?
Well, my closing thoughts. I think the way they did indicate they were going forward with the redesign was to divide it into the 4 sections: the cockpit, the neck, the body, and the tail. And by reworking those, then you could choose the rounded cockpit of the Aquila or the original cockpit. You could choose for the appropriate neck. You could choose the appropriate middle. And I think if I do that, then it does give the ship a lot more variety or variation opportunity. And I think that may solve a lot of the problems. But for me, the biggest problems are still the fact that it became a large ship, but still has those medium components. And I think it makes it underpowered.
Again,
for what
if they did a full rework, that would all be taken care of because they can just up the components. Dyson.
Agreed.
Fix it! Is that what I was gonna say?
They need to do a complete rework.
Yeah, it's at that point for me. Like I just like yes, it is an iconic ship, but if it go at the moment, it's almost an embarrassment. Like it's just not where it needs to be. And if this is the ship, and the Super Hornet got reworked, and it's in a fantastic place, this needs the same treatment.
Just think of the Carrack. The big thing is they need to take away from the Carrack is do not waste space, and they shrunk it because they did not waste space. This could, in theory, be a medium ship again.
Yep.
If they don't waste space.
I do agree with your comments about the cockpit. I think the cockpit could, like, those three seats right next to each other don't make a lot of sense to me. And I think, again, it's got to do with the turret placement. If this ship had a full rework, you could literally have turrets at the back of the ship, as an example, one on the top and one on the bottom, like
just remote turrets.
Yeah, exactly.
Hands
you
down.
know,
shove the turrets at the back,
spread.
and that solves the height problem that you get from the midsection.
Yeah, it's again the early design being carried right through to the end, and it is clear now. It needs to go back and learn a few lessons that were learned along the way and get some fixes. But I think it's also what you said at the start of the show too, that Chris Roberts is just not wanting to let this look go. And again, it can be slightly tweaked and it can look similarly the same, but yeah, full rework time for me personally.
So the question, can we fix it?
Probably not.
Yes, we can.
And the appropriate answer is yes, we can.
Bob the Builder or whatever. All right, what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments. Would you be prepared to let this ship get a full rework, or do you love it too much and they just need to stick with it and get it to work? Or what's your thoughts and suggestions for fixing this ship? And do you actually use it? Or is it like us and it's kind of gone by the wayside and you don't use as much as you used to? If you like this video, like this video. If you don't like this video, you can dislike it as well. Leave a comment. As I said, we read every single one. We might not reply to everyone. We try to get back to as much as we can. And if you want to have a discussion with us on Discord, we're on there all the time. I can be hit any time I'm on there. And same with these other boys. All right.
And don't forget, hit that subscribe button and the little bell so you get notifications when we release something new.
Excellent. All right. He's been Dyson. He's been Algared. And I've been Execute. And we'll catch you next time.
Take care, guys.